Welcome to Political Paradigm, where the conversation is strictly politics. I'm Terry Ikumi. Today, my guest is the Executive Governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade. The conversation begins with him responding to questions on how the Labour Party performed in the general elections, especially the presidential election in his state, where the Labour Party defeated the All Progressives Congress.
If you look at the distribution analysis in the areas and local governments where they won, and you will see that where you have a traditionally cross-river setting, the victory is different, the pattern is different. So if you plot a graph showing the relationship between stranger elements, residents, and indigents, you will definitely see clearly that in the hinterlands where you have traditionally only crossing areas, the result is completely different. And so there's some ethnic coloration, if you like, but that's the reality of our times. If that is statistics you will go by, you'll just find that even in other states where Labour Party won, you see the high concentration of people from the southeast. You take a case of Nasarawa. As you get immediately after you leave Abuja, most of the areas within that Nasarawa axis and all of that, Nyanya and the rest, they are predominantly southeastern people who would always, in the spirit of unanimity, stand strong with their own. And so I can't dismiss that role. But as to say, was that sufficient to turn the tide in Cross River State? I would say no. So there must be another factor that I need to investigate, because essentially speaking, we still outnumber them anyway. But there was this youth force that believed that there was a need to effect a change. And so even the young Cross Riverians who believe in this new ideology and concept of change moved away from ethnic calculations and went into the concept of change, which was a change on the basis of age, which was a change on the basis of trying to give a feeling that Nigeria deserves to have a departure from the major parties that have held sway for a long time, be it APC or indeed PDP. So that also was a factor.
You know, one of the things that's expected of the next president is unifying this country. I don't know if you're confident that he can unify this country. And I ask this because of the reactions that have trailed the list, the transition committee list that he sent to the secretary to the government of the Federation, excluding the people of the Southeast. And it's generated quite some reactions, especially from the Ohanese Indigbo, and indeed members of your party as well.
Well, it's a very delicate and tricky one. Most times in politics, you actually don't sit to draw this list yourself. And in drawing those lists, you always draw the list based on people who have worked and delivered. In politics, essentially, you reward not effort, you reward results. So sometimes when you look at the results that have been delivered, and ask yourself, okay, did this state deliver 25% minimum at least? No, this one, no. It begins to give a coloration as if there is something personal. But most times, not the president or the president-elect or the candidate himself that sits and takes those detailed decisions, but the president-elect that I know. Once this is brought to his attention, there seems to be a disbalance. I know he will effect a correction, unless it's for a strategic purpose, to achieve a certain message. But whether he has the capacity to unify this nation, yes.
Well, what kind of message? I mean, you look at how the Southeast has cried of exclusion. You look at some of the states in the Southeast. For example, Governor Umahi has moved to the APC to show his support. He didn't win the state for the APC at the presidential level, but he's made effort. And some persons in the Southeast, look at Governor Hope Uzodinma as well. Do you think that this is acceptable in any way? You say it could be for some strategy.
No, I won't condemn it, but I know that there's room for improvements. Hope Uzodinma or my friend David Mahi are very committed members of APC. They're people who have almost staked their lives to bring in APC into the Southeast hinterland. And so for whatever reason, their own fidelity in the APC family is sufficient to give them a space and give them a bargain power. So I believe that if there's any abnormality in that process, it will be corrected. And I have no hesitation and I have no doubts in my mind that President-elect will effect a change if it becomes necessary. And like I said, politics is not everything on the table, as it were. And so if there's a need to pass a message, look, hey, we're not too happy with the result, but please, there's room for improvement. Of course, the Constitution provides that there will be a minister in every state, and of course, one pay zone. So they're going to have their position. Definitely they will. But I think it's also trying to say, look, we can't continue to vote on ethnic lines. But again, in a relationship between two unequal partners, the bigger partner must show maturity and magnanimity. And so, ultimately, at the fullness of time, the Southeast will also be brought into the equation because it's part of nation building. It's part of their long craving for power to come to the Southeast. It's understandable. And so there must be a balance between emotion and logic.
Will this balance include perhaps the zoning of the Senate presidency to the Southeast as has been clamored now?
Well, it's part of the discussion this night, and I believe that the Governors Forum have a role because most of us have produced various senators, and in politics there's consultation. So we want to do the consultation, take a historical perspective, do a full digital analysis of the opportunities, the potentials, look at the total vote harvest, do a special distribution of the votes, come back into a final decision as to where it's appropriate. Judging and bearing in mind that everything you're planning also against 2007. Like politicians, immediately after the election is done, the next election is in focus. So President Tinubu, President-elect, please, must also be cautious of the fact that we will also be back in the polls 2 years from here.
You know, when you speak about him like that, I'm tempted to remind you that the controversies surrounding the President-elect, Tinubu, are getting louder. But I would ask you, you've only been in the APC for about 2 years now, and you speak confidently about him. What is it about him that you know that Nigerians do not, that makes you believe that he will make an amazing president?
Well, first, my personal contact with him over the times. I've met and known him before I moved to APC. And I've had need to solicit value from him. And he did add value. Two, I think where we are as a country, we've gone past these issues of health because nobody gave President Muhammadu Buhari a chance that he was going to live to today. In fact, newspapers carried horrible stories about his state of health. Today he's healthier than most of us. And so I dismissed that, and I just finished having a meeting with the president-elect. He's healthier than I am, I can tell you that. Number two, it's important for you to take note that this is a man who has built Lagos, the most complex society in terms of heterogeneity of residents and what have you. And I've delicately managed it very well. And so he's coming with a man who has the street experience, who comes from a professional background as an accountant working in oil and gas industry. He's coming with a profession, accounting. He's coming into a place that he's well vested in because he's been in government for a long time. He fought for the emancipation of this country from the strongholds of the military. So he's built an amalgam of experience that will come to bear. We have seen him deploy the delicate balance and use of technocrats and experts to bring value onto Lagos State. So at his level, what is required is not raw energy. It's a man who can put his eyes on and hands off. A man who knows how to pick the right heads and put them together and allow them opportunity to run. He's produced a lot of products who are outstanding scholars who have served this nation creditably well. And so given his antecedents, experientially, I'm tempted to support the feeling that I've got that given the man who has run Lagos, who's been in the street, who understands the street language, who's been in very high places in government, yet stable enough, you need to see his simplicity. You need to know that this is somebody who is prepared to work. There are no official heirs around Tinubu. He will be available to you at all times, accessible. That's somebody who is willing to learn. Somebody who, at his age, he has not assumed that he knows all. He picks people together, put a team together to drive this country. And I think that's why I believe that he would be a very good president. Because you don't have to know it all, but know how to pick the best team put together and let them run.
You know, I'm sure that you wish that you were working with him from the Senate to give that support, but sadly you did not win. And it's really surprising to many. I think indeed to yourself as well, that after 8 years, anyone would think that you deserved a shot at the Senate, and your people did not vote for you. Why do you think you lost?
No, please, far from it. My people voted for me. My people did.
So what went wrong? Why did you lose that election?
Well, that election was militaristic, was highly militarized. We didn't have access to our collection centers. We didn't even have access to how you need to see. There was nobody called APC in any collection centers. I've never seen an election of that nature. And I don't want to discuss it. The matter is before the tribunal.
Well, it's surprising that a state governor...
No. It happens to almost every governor. Almost every governor. It did happen to them. Just talk to any other governor, I will tell you their experience.
Your Excellency, you know what's interesting is you're not the only governor in the South to lose his senatorial bid.
Exactly.
So
ask them, talk to them. They will tell you the same
they
story.
had similar experiences.
Exactly.
Well, here's the feedback we get. It's almost as though members of your party worked against you. I say that because there have been calls for suspension of a few people in your party. There are those who have said that you should sanction certain persons in your party for working against you. You don't think that members of your party worked against you?
No, you get it wrong. Anti-party was not meant for Cross River State or me. It's always the tradition. When you take 5 local governments that constitute my senatorial district, the names mentioned in question, the anti-party has to do with maybe unable to disburse funds appropriately or timely, unable to be at the collation centers because you were scared that the army were trying. So this kind of allegations are very inconsequential. It constitutes less than 1% of the factors that led to this. I mean, I have videos I will show you where the collection center have a candidate of the PDP inside the collection center. When the Electoral Act forbids a candidate to be in the electoral, I as sitting governor, I sat in my house and I watched all that was going on. And because it was wrong for me to get to the collection center. I never did. I voted and returned to my house. So all of this put together considered a larger factor. The issue that 1 or 2, but that's not even been the position of the party. It's been social media position. The party, as a party, has never issued such a statement. And that's why I told the party chairman that who is this person bantering and putting names and saying this person did anti-party? Oh, please. I know the bigger problem was the fact that most of them didn't have access to the collection centers.
You know, the feedback we get from some of the people of Cross River is that your people, at some point, got tired of you. For many, they said you were running Cross River like a family business. In fact, some say you christened your brother as co-governor, and they thought it was an opportunity to teach you a lesson. How do you respond to that?
You're sounding like 8 years ago. You're sounding like 8
I mean,
years
the
ago.
results.
The
results are showing similar.
No, I delivered my local government at all times. My people are with me.
But how is it that your people did not vote for you for the Senate?
You just said that and I've just corrected you. You still repeat. So you have a mentality, you need to detox yourself to be free and open-minded to listen to a conversation. If you come with a mindset, then it's difficult to assist you.
No, it's just
because
research.
The question,
it's not
research.
Trust me, it's research.
It's social media stories. And you, instead of relying on the dependable factor, and I think it's that clarification that you want to have a talk about. In this clarification, and I say it very clearly, I don't understand when a state that basically earns the lowest allocation in the country, I am not owing salary, I am not owing pension, extensively did projects that with bare knuckles, expanded government, putting food on almost every family, appointees beyond the carrying capacity of the states. Oh, please, you need to see what was the strongest sentiment. Let me give you another dimension. I come from the northern part of the state. We are very, very strong Catholics. Very strong Catholics indeed. Nobody will say that there's a family that I, Governor Ayade, did not factor. Unless you didn't exist, it was not brought to my attention. I'm one person who hardly will say no even to an enemy. And so to narrow the government to say you want to teach a lesson to who? Government has never been as sociable as I have been, making sure that every single person that gets access to me gets his problem addressed. Putting food on tables of thousands of people, providing, 40-something commissioners when I actually don't need half of that. Over 400 special advisors, I don't need that. Thousands of appointees to give them a CV, to give them a sense of belonging, to commit them, reduce social tension, and allow me to diversify the economy. Basically, that was very deep. Now, you have 1% of the elitists who believe that the thousands of people I was providing salaries for no work done, basically, was a way of compromising the elitist families. How do I mean? What do I really mean? You know, you have a small segment of society that holds this sophistry that power belongs to us. When you adulterate it by expanding the horizon of government and letting in more people, it begins to look as if we are compromising the power structure. And so that, again, is an affront on that elitist group who propagate this theory. It's mere propagation because, basically speaking, if you look at the income of the state versus what I put on the ground, practically on the ground, and that's the unfortunate thing with most of you, you never have opportunity to visit the field. So what you pick up on the newspaper, what you pick up on the social media, forms your perception. But please try and visit.
So I think this is beyond perception. That's why it's a question and answer thing. Because the feedback is from your people. So when you talk about how much lies this could be, it's fair that you have an opportunity to respond to it. And this would form news for a lot of us, as you put it. Because some of the allegations against you include that you have taken over lands in a bid to build the 275-kilometer superhighway.
275 kilometers of land was not taken from my senatorial district. It's stretching just 70 meters width. 70 meters width. A narrow strip of 70 meters width from Bakassi Deep Seaport to the end of northern Nigeria.
Well, there have been reactions to that, saying that you're encroaching into their lands.
Look, it's a subject for a whole day discussion. One of the projects we are commissioning before I leave office is the same superhighway, phase 1 of it, fully ready before I leave office. What's happening? Look, the Atlantic Ocean is so far away from northern Nigeria. Our iron ore deposit, Gum Arabic, Tantalite, and all the huge solid mineral deposits in northern Nigeria are landlocked. The closest maritime corridor to northern Nigeria is the Calabar. So the Bakassi Deep Sea Port there allows us a maritime economy, which is lacking. Cross River State has such a huge rainfall. Almost 70% of the year is rainfall. So Calabar will not be a perfect city center for tourism. But you have the huge Atlantic coast. We're closer to the Gulf of Guinea, rich aquatic settings. So it is only appropriate for us to consider a blue economy, alongside the fact that we have 33 solid minerals, with a huge agricultural belt, kissing the northern part of the country, because Cross River State shares boundary with northern Nigeria. So, a superhighway connecting northern Nigeria to the open sea is the smartest thing you can do to be able to emancipate the people of Cross River. A leader cannot be led. If there's no farmland we pass through that we didn't pay compensation. In any case, that is not the issue. That was my first 2 years in office. I won my second term.
Well, so you agree that some farmlands were taken?
How can you construct a road without passing through a land?
Have you finished up with compensation on those lands?
Done. There's no issue on compensation on those. How do you want to construct? Look.
But you know, it's not clear the level of completion of these projects which you talk about, the deep seaport and the superhighway. At what level of completion are they? Because you had hoped that they would be done before you leave office.
Somebody has to start a dream. The problem is that people in public office think small. I came with a very big audacity. That's why they call me Giant Alakoko. The dream, if you dream and have ambition that you can achieve in your lifetime, it was so small. Cross River State, I said again, the lowest allocation in the country. And I have a project to build a deep sea port and a superhighway. We've got all the institutional approvals done. The design of the deep sea port completed and approved. We're the first people to get agro-industrial port approved in Nigeria. But how would you not do that when the whole country is shipping through one maritime corridor?
Your Excellency, I think my question was, when will this be completed?
It's just work in progress. I just told you phase 1 will be commissioned now. Phase 1 will be commissioned.
What does phase 1 entail?
Phase 1 entails the first phase, which is the first entry into Calabar, or taking off from Calabar, taking you out, passing through the Spaghetti flyover, bypassing the Odupani junction, which has been a major headache coming to Calabar. So I did a dual carriageway coming from Calabar to Odupani junction, and a 6-lane superhighway taking off from Odupani and stretching out into exiting you out of Calabar, but bypassing Calabar city center. So you go through the Lafarge pathway and hit the Bakassi Deep Sea Port. It's difficult for you to appreciate this. The reality is that Cross River State has been a civil servant state. I come from an industry background, oil and gas. I came in as governor and I didn't want to do traditional governors, and decided on a long strategic plan to decouple Cross River State from its dependence on federal allocation. And I looked at the opportunities. One industry in each local government at a minimum, a superhighway to connect them and discharge into the deep sea port for export. The deep sea port cost us $350 million, which is very, very effective figure for us to be able to finish it on time. Unfortunately, our finances does not support that. And that's why I had these massive budgets. And the intent of the massive budget was to prepare a warehousing structure that can allow us densify incomes of particularly people who want to invest. But the macroeconomic climate of Nigeria made it impossible. The exchange rate, the volatility, the instability, these factors are beyond me. But the reality that I'm focused, the next governor taking over from me must show that consistency, that we understand the focus. Where on earth? Markets don't create ports. Ports create market. Ports create economy. Take away the ports from Lagos State, it won't be the same. So we know that Calabar is the next city to happen. That will be our next Lagos. Just get this Bakassi Deep Sea Port completed. And we've done all the jobs. I have 1,850 piles, and I can give you specificity, and I can give you geolocate each of them, and set up a pile and pylon factory to construct and manufacture the piles. How else can someone? But it takes time.
So here's the thing. Your people expect a direct impact on them, because I know that you're funding this project from the Cross River Post, and then you anticipate that the federal government would put in some money. You had said sometime last year that the federal government would budget for it as well. This administration is fading out, and your people question whether or not they need this project, especially the cargo airport, which you talked about. So beyond your vision for your people, do you sense that your people are happy with you, with these projects that will not materialize even after you've left office?
Oh no, listen, you have to understand that a leader has two ways to think. The immediate needs of your people, roads, boreholes, solar lighting, street lighting, that's been done. But the bigger picture is the master plan you have, the dream you have for your state. You can't effect a change by doing the same thing all the time. And so a leader cannot be led. What is my plan? My plan is to build a future, a prosperity superhighway that leaves an opportunity that will emancipate my people from the syndrome of depending on coming out of university and becoming a civil servant or a traditional politician. That dream cannot be achieved with the kind of income we've got. But you must have the big mind to set up the agenda. Why the port in the airport? You have the Obudu Plateau. A small country like Rwanda makes about $9 billion annually exporting flowers. The same climate we've got in Obudu. You don't export flowers by ship. This country imports French fries from potato into this country. French fries, you ship them in. You have precious metals like tantalite, gold, platinum, and the rest. They are exported by air. So we located that airport in such a way that we will bring traffic to Obudu Cattle Ranch. Because people again say, oh, the ranch is dead. If you like, go and build a new hotel in the ranch and make it of gold. If somebody has to take 7 hours driving from Calabar to get up the ranch in such perilous times and difficult roads, definitely he will not come back. So, as a professor, I knew that the challenge of the ranch is not the immediacy of fixing the ranch. It's to fix the access to the ranch. Number two, nobody remembers that as soon as I was sworn into office, the cable car wasn't working. I fixed the cable car before my first Christmas. And what did I realize? After all the amount of money, I went back to the original cable car manufacturer and I gave him the refurbishment cap contract. We didn't realize 80,000 naira. People don't have the money. They would rather go with their bike, go upstairs. The tourists drive their car upstairs. And so I'm educated. I can't follow cheap social talk. I'm the one sitting on the table, and I know that if the ranch will have its full potential, I need an airport.
We've seen governors with ideas, great ideas. I'll give you an example. Former Governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, when he was to build the monolight rail, and he used state funds for that. Didn't succeed with that. Years after, when he became a minister, he said one of his regrets was not taking a loan to do that. You're using state funds for that. And you had hoped as well that the federal government would get involved in it. How involved is the federal government? That's one. And secondly, a new administration is coming in and you're close to the president-elect, as you say. What sort of conversation do you have with him to get involved in this project? Because that is the fastest way, perhaps, beyond the state to achieve those projects. Because you will leave office as well.
This is the question that shows that you're understanding me. This explains why I moved to APC. It's part of the reason. If you go back to my studies, I want to socket to the center. One of my greatest complaints that I moved to APC about 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I came at the heat of elections. Otherwise, I was expecting sufficient compensation. And one of my bargains was the deep sea port and the superhighway. And the only request I have made of the president-elect is the deep sea port. Put that deep sea port, 350 million, phase one, which is 800 kilometers ski wall, just 350 million. You will see a new Calabar, you see a new Cross River State. You will now begin to see the sense. When they conceived Lekki, everybody thought Lekki Port was foolish. But today, the Lekki Port is a big deal. It never started in any of these two regimes. So moving to APC, and my pride is that APC is producing the ruling government. My request is that the people of Cross River State have been dislocated in body and soul by the loss of the Bakassi oil wells in the most strange judgment on planet Earth. Can you compensate us? The people of Bakassi have become IDPs in their own ancestral home. The minimum you can do, federal government, can you put the Bakassi deep sea port on your budget? 350 million is no money to the federal government. You've just got 800 million to distribute for palliatives as a way of subsidy removal. Imagine 350 from there, like this. And you already have HHI. You have companies like China Harbour, #1 harbour construction company in the world, that did the feasibility study, that did the design. They're ready. Everything is set. Just 350,000. And you don't need to put all of that money together. Actually pushed for a sovereign guarantee, which it just paperwork. I got a commitment, but it never materialized. But you don't give up. Otherwise, you just have a governor who comes and do carnival, plant grass, dance, and just do small rural roads. Professor Ayade will come and do that. In my next life and another life, exactly what I did, I will.
But the government isn't listening to you.
Which government?
The Buhari government.
I'm just 2 years.
Well,
just 2 years in the party.
You said you joined the APC with the hope of that.
Of course, and I told that.
And then
when
you
I
said
came,
last year you had hoped that that would be in the budget.
And I
as well.
said so to you, and I said, unfortunately, I came on the heat of political transition. That may have explained, because Buhari will not give you his word and take it. Don't forget, the first official visit of President Buhari was the superhighway. Don't forget, people like you and others spend all their life on social media criticizing the project.
I'm a journalist. You cannot put me in that category.
No, because it was journalists who were assisting. The guy who, look, imagine somebody would write that if somebody wanted to do tree felling for the purpose of business, I will fell it on a straight line. Imagine 88 international petitions that the superhighway was interfering with a national park. It took Mr. President and the former Chief of Staff to ask the Minister of Environment. 3 years were in court between Cross River State government and the federal government, Minister of Environment, that we should not construct a road in a country where you have 7 hours journey to go from my hometown to my state capital. Jesus Christ. Where does that happen in this Nigeria? 7 hours. And then the most attractive place in this country to go on holiday is Obudu Cattle Ranch. How will you ask Mr. President-elect to come and do his vacation in Obudu when he has to do such a huge journey? So the reality is that people only criticize because you have to look bad for them to win. Politics has merged with government.
Well, you know, that's not a good perception to have of criticisms. Criticisms are supposed to help you do better. But if you have such a negative perception of it, I don't know how that drives you. But that's not something for us to dwell on. What's the status of the cargo airport then?
The cargo airport is not by sea, it's by air. Look, Cross River State is very, very longitudinal. It's like a long line. On one end, you terminate in the sea, which is the Atlantic Ocean, as it were, which is where Calabar is. That's the southern part of the state. On the extreme end, which is the northern part, you have landlocked into northern Nigeria. And here you have precious stone, you have huge opportunity to grow Irish potato for export, you have opportunity to grow ornamental flowers for export, to make the agro-dollar. So there you put an international airport to cargo airport, to allow you have the beneficiation pathway to lift all of those for export to make money. While on the extreme and on the south, you have opportunity for a deep sea port. Link the two with a superhighway. First, ask yourself 1 minute, if this was to work, if I was a state that had money, you know I would have finished this in any way. Picture the amount of people I put food on their table. So what you can just do simply, just take my last month's salaries, 3.2 billion. Income under 1 billion. I'm just talking of this April, this March that we just all paid. So you have that margin. Will I give up and fold my hands and wait? No. Have I given somebody an appointment I'm unable to pay him? No. And I was told that in the first 2 months I will be stoned because I created too many jobs I won't be able to pay. For 8 years I have paid without fail. God is on the throne. Finally, I don't hate criticism. When you criticize with the intent to add value, is different. When you criticize with the intent to destroy, it's always seen in the way you speak about it. When you see me finish a design with the best company in the world, when I go abroad and secure a company coming to build a seaport, come and finish a presentation in Calabar, by the time they return to their home country, they receive over 200 petitions from Cross River, don't come. How do you call that criticism?
Your Excellency, in listening to you, it's almost clear that you are an infrastructure governor. You call yourself a digital governor. But I think one question is very important at this point. You're almost out of office now. I recall that you've repeatedly, on this, in the course of our conversation, talked about the people you feed and putting food on their table and how you have catered to your people's basic needs. It raises the question, are you saying that you are leaving the people of Cross River better than you met them? And this is not infrastructure-wise.
Oh, okay. I ask you a question. I'll answer you with a simple question. You come into office and meet a governor structure that has about 13 commissioners or 14, maybe about 10, 15 appointees, as special advisors and the rest. And another government comes, move that number to 40. Take those number of appointees to 20,000 and above. And everyone is getting salary. What do you think you are doing? You are leaving an impact. Don't believe me. Just go to Cross River State and go and check the amount of flights that used to come to Cross River before I became governor, and check the amount of flights that come in now. Go to the hotels and check occupancy before Ayade was governor, and check occupancy now. Go and see school enrollment rate. Go to the churches and see offertory. Compare offertories before I came in and now. Go and check the number of buildings. Go and check the demographic explosion in Cross River State. Go and check the amount of refuse being generated because of steady salary to a large number of people. Go and check.
You know, your stats suggest that you focused on a certain class of people. And I ask this because a report, the International Center for Investigative Reporting, says that Cross River civil servants are retiring to poverty as government defaults on pension payment, squanders money on frivolities.
I don't know where you get your statistics.
I just said the International Center for Investigative Reporting.
What does that mean?
And this is
what does that mean to you?
What
As I'm talking to you, I met a government with a standing pension backlog, salaries backlog. I've cleared them. I'm not paying pension. And one man who...
You know that Cross River State is among the states with the highest poverty rate in the country.
You know, I had somebody who interviewed me on this, and I almost lost my temper. Because he's relying on a newspaper publication of some years ago.
That is statistics. That's from the National Bureau of Statistics, actually.
Because if you ask them, let them come and tell me what has happened between the time I came into office and now. Because you used to have 10 appointees. Now you have hundreds of them. You used to have no industry. Now you have industries. You used to have a situation where what has changed? What has changed is that Cross Riverians are very intelligent, very educated, and the larger population of our political class are young people.
You're talking so much about political appointments as a means to alleviating poverty in the land. And it raises a question because the statistics which you dismiss says that just in the South, generally, apart from Ebonyi and I think Enugu, Cross River is the only state that falls into that category of high poverty rate in the country.
That's why I sympathize with that statistics. I do, because you need to come on the ground.
So beyond political appointments, what did you do to improve the poverty in the country, in your state?
Okay, let me tell you. First thing we did as a government when I came into office was to have a policy that Cross River money would not cross the river. So what we tried to do was to do everything we can to ensure that we start setting up small cottage industries whose primary raw material is drawn from Cross River. We have a poultry processing plant, 24,000 beds per day, functional, 100% working, depending on Cross Riverians to supply beds to process for frozen chicken export. We have the cocoa processing factory. We have the vegetable oil factory. We have Kalachika. We have the noodle factory. All these factories are complete. They are there. The intent is that those who were appointees, as it were, migrate from food on the table to hands on the plow. So by those industries and creating jobs for the various and putting industries across the various local government, we're helping to create value. And I used to tell my people that if you look at the amount of industries I've built, if I built these industries in another commercial zone outside of my state, people will fall over their heads to take them over. You know the Ogoja rice mill? Fantastic. Have you seen the picture? If not, it's the first vitaminized rice mill plant in Africa. Completed its running. We advertised it, not one Cross River sought for it. We gave it to somebody. Now this person is looking for paddy, that's rice to grow, to mill. In 1 week we finished buying out all the paddy in Cross River State. So what do we do?
You know,
that's how you create an economy.
So I will take you to the situation of unemployment, because I recall that in 2015, when you were assuming office, you had pledged that you will improve the unemployment rate before you leave. It's at 53.6% now, just as you leave office. Now, despite all these projects which you have put on ground, the industries which you said you've expanded, why is that figure at 53.6%?
First, I don't know where you get your statistics.
National Bureau of Statistics.
I doubt that statistics. Two, I can tell you for sure that in Cross River State, what I met is not what is there today.
So what is the statistics of unemployed people and of unemployment in your state?
When you talk about unemployment, just recently, a process that is ongoing, I'm the first person to lift embargo on employment. I lifted embargo that has been placed for the last 30 years. Employed, first step, my first employment in primary school, 2,500 teachers. Recently, just approved another 5,000. If this doesn't make sense, and those who are retiring into pension, I'm not owing them the pension. So for you to come and give me a statistics based on one document without, I've not even been interviewed. I've not met any of my commissioners saying that, okay, Federal Bureau of Statistics have come to the state. You know, they look at your allocation and assume that this state is very poor because it's getting 900 million, 1 billion. Therefore conclude that, come to the ground. Because you see, when you want to gather statistics, I'm a scientist. You deal with the people. Who came to Cross River to generate statistics that is not known to my statistician, is not known to the state statistician general, is not known to the governor, is not known to any of my
I think this is where you come in. This is where you come in.
Who are you interviewing?
This is where you come in. You know, you should have
extrapolated data of the past.
Some states have their own data.
We do.
To compare, but you don't know the statistics of unemployed people in your state.
We are dancing between 32 to 33%. And explainable. We have the lowest allocation, with a debt burden that is killing my shoulders, that I will know what to discuss. Do you know how much is my debt servicing? Today I stand at over 138 billion. A state that almost the lowest allocation. It's unfortunate that you can never see my perspective, because once people feed you with information for a long period without the luxury of hearing the other side, it's likely going to. And I'm happy that we have this opportunity to have this conversation. Do you know what the Cross River State income is? Do you know the debt burden? Do you know my monthly servicing of debt? You know what DMO takes from me from direct allocation? What is debited out of Cross River State every month? Do you know how many people I pay salary? Tell me what is left for these great dreams. What is driving Cross River State is intellectual money.
Intellectual money.
Intellectual money. Have you heard the principle? There are 42 ways of doing business without money. The intervention of the intellect takes care of currency, which is Naira and Kobo. That's what's been driving Cross River State.
Since joining the APC, there have been quite a number of intervention programs which should have had a direct impact on the poverty level in your state. The federal government has a number of social intervention programs. How impactful is that in your state?
Look, those things are very, how do I explain it? What makes a developed nation from an underdeveloped nation? What makes a society called developed nation, first world, third world, is the care for her citizens. Listen to this carefully. What makes America developed and we not developed? Europe developed and or let me say Britain developed and we're not developed, is that our poor people, those who don't have the privilege that the elites have, do not have a social security. They do not have guarantee of shelter. They do not have guarantee of food. If you are a British citizen from UK, every Thursday there's an allowance for you once you're 18 unemployed. You find that in the US. In this country, nothing like that happens. So the concept of development in African perspective is infrastructure. But the reality is that development starts with the people. The happiness index, not the GDP. The happiness index of the people. When I expanded government, I put a lot of people on the payroll. It's short of calling it a social welfare program. But that's how a developing nation, somebody with a childhood poverty like mine, will have the common sense to know how that small 50,000 a month makes a lot of difference.
I'm afraid this doesn't answer the question of what's federal government interventions.
I'm coming to that.
To the state.
I'm coming to that. So when federal government starts intervention program like Mother Comfort, a cash transfer, conditional cash transfer, money market, all these programs intended to bring value to the poorest of the poor. In philosophy and principle, that's the way to go, because you have to lift people from extreme poverty, which has created extreme social deviation from norm. But how impactful those have been is a subject for a full controversy, because the population is far too huge for the interventions that come. So they become insignificant and just dilute into the system.
Is they insignificant in your state?
Yes, yes. I don't know of any person who has become self-sufficient occasioned by a social welfare program of any sort. But I can take my phone now and show you people who send me blessings, who tell me if it's not the last pay that has come, my child would have dropped out of school. But not for you, I wouldn't have bought my last blood pressure tablet. This small house, my father lived all his life a tenant. At my tender age, you have made me to own a small house. I thank you, God will bless you. People don't know the impact. When you see young perseverance today, you see some independence. You see some sense. That's why we have the lowest crime rate. Take away the amount of people are put on. And listen, as you see a lot of people who have, I give you an example. When I was doing my campaign, a young man came and donated 10 buses to support my campaign. And I asked how. He said, from the 150,000 I pay him every month, he saved and took a loan and bought one bus. From one bus, 8 years to go, he has 10 buses. There are a lot of success stories. A true developing economy in a third world backward nation. Emphasis is not on the beautiful streets, it's on people. When you see a Nigerian today, when there's a plane crash, people rush to the scene, not to rescue, but to scavenge. That moral miasma that has characterized our morality is occasioned by the extreme hardship. There's a level of criminality in everybody. The role of government is to reduce that and give you your human dignity. And that's why people that God have elevated to the position of governor, president, should focus on their citizens. If I did nothing else and stayed on only that expanded government program, I would have satisfied my mother and my father. That I swore that I will never interfere with the 1 kobo of Cross River State. Salary will come first, pension will come first, and I've honored it to date. Take away the salaries and pensions I've paid, take away the projects I've done, and put the total income of Cross River State minus the loans I have paid so far, and tell me what is left. And tell me who will do that magic. Go to my state and call magician. Come to my colleagues, they call me magician. Because sometimes when they see my projects, they don't even believe it's real. In fact, they will write that these are pictures from China. They don't believe. But nobody remembers my history. I didn't come from the street to become governor. I came from a professional background. I came very rich and successful.
Your Excellency, you talk about how not so impactful the interventions are. And as we look towards the Tinubu administration, you're close to him, as you say. Would you advise him to continue with his federal government social intervention programs?
Here is my advice to Mr. President-elect. Focus on the things that bring immediate value to the citizens. Shut our doors, which is isolationism, and ignore these international community ideologies. There's a thin line between the survival of this country and the conflagration. The carrying capacity of the citizens have reached its limits. There is extreme hardship. Come and focus on small basic agro-industrialization. 1776, when UK started industrialization, they started with agro-industrialization. And check the history of all nations that have developed. They started with agro-industrialization. Go to Cross River, you see if you go to Yakko local government area, you see a toothpick factory. You grow bamboo plantation. From the bamboo you produce toothpick. The toothpick factory is there, it's producing. You go to a place, you have granules. The major occupation there, they grow granules. I have a granule processing factory. I have a vegetable oil factory, 2 factories in that local government area. You go to Goja, their predominant business is rice. They have a lot of paddy soils. They grow rice. I have a vitaminized rice mill set up there for them. You go to Ecom, their major business is cocoa. I have the first and only outstanding cocoa processing factory from cocoa bean to chocolate bar. Perfectly completed is rare from Biola. This is what I will advise President-elect to focus on. Agro-industrial, small cottage industries that bring immediate value, create jobs for people, create value addition, and spin off poverty and take out poverty. Phase 2, before you go to heavy industries, massive projects. Because if you don't get that point right, you'll be focusing on, oh, you want to see skyscraper streets, you want to see a bustling, super beautiful. No, it's the people first. We're a third world. To frog leap into a developing economy or a developed economy, the citizens must have dignity and integrity. Today, the name Nigeria is associated with criminality. Reality is that our young people are going through too much. Tell me in which of the developed nations that you come out of university for 6 years, you have no job, and no government is coming to your rescue. The patience our people have, our young people have, is so much. I tell you, if you know the pain people go through, you will know why I expanded government the way. Sometimes I do it with tears. I can't pay salary, but I'm appointing more people. For God's grace, I have not owed salary. I've paid much. As we speak today, we're in April. Next week, I'm going to pay April salary.
I hope so. You pay the road sweepers as well.
Now, that's another interesting story. I made the road sweepers earning pittance. I just increased their salary too. No salary. Just come out in the morning, sweep, and go back and take your 10,000. Help you to go back and do your vegetable work or the small job with all these widows. And I increased the salary. Now, what's interesting? You now have a set of people that you pay. Let me tell you, see, governance is a very difficult thing. Your records is showing that you're paying, let's say, 1,000 sweepers. But what you see on the ground is far less, because you're not paying the sweeper, you're paying somebody who is paying them. So you have issues, contractual issues. And the implication of that is that it's affecting the other small person. And the new trend today is that go and protest, put it on social media. And that's what crossover is good at, because it's now politics. But you ask them, what were you earning before Ayade came in? How steady has been this pay? And I said, look, why don't we hire them direct? So that I can pay them salary directly. No, there's politics behind it, because the people managing that are our own political class who have helped us to win office.
Does this mean that the genuine ones among them will not be paid before you leave office?
No, we just computed. It's just small amount of money.
But they will be paid before.
Paid completely. If I'm paying bigger bills in billions, is it as small?
I mean, the later the government, so it's understandable. Your Excellency, we're virtually out of time, but I must ask you this. You speak so much about what you've done, and you also allude to the fact that it's impossible for any government to conclude on whatever plans it's had for the people, even after 8 years. Do you have any regrets as you leave office?
Yes. The regret is this. The society is colored by the stories they read. They don't see the heart of the person. They don't see the sincerity. They don't see the goodness. Because if you don't market yourself, if I don't come, remember, I didn't ask for this meeting. You are the people who called me, please, you want to talk with me. I don't do this. Because if I'm not disciplined, see my purity of heart and the kind of questions you put, which ordinarily is intended to make me explain these points, which is the public perception. But I get hot because I see how sincere I am. I see how I go through impossible. I'm coming to your point. I see how impossible it is to pay these salaries that I'm expanding every day. And somebody is relying on the story that somebody who has asked me for something 2 days ago. Let me tell you, governors go through a lot of persecution. A man calls you today and says, I need 40 million. I say, I don't have 40 million. Can you manage this 5 million? 2 weeks after he calls you, I need a car. The next week, these are people who call themselves journalists. And the day you say no, the stories he writes about you unbelievable. You call and say, how can you do this? He say, if I don't write anything negative, nobody reads my story. Anytime I post something positive, nobody reads. So destroy your name is his business to be able to thrive. And the poor innocent public takes that as the perception of the person. I've asked you one question because you've been asking me. Let me take home this question, even if you can't give me an answer now. What is cross-river state allocation? What is the monthly deduction from federal government occasioned by the legacy debt of almost 400 billion that I inherited? What is the total salary I pay monthly? What is the total pension I pay monthly? What is left? Subtract the projects I have done. Does cross-river state money have that quantum to effect all this? If you answer those questions with the fear of God, you'll come back and tell me, God will bless you. Because cross-riverians have never known steady salary like this for 8 years. The first time it's happening is under my regime. And not a small number, a massive number, the largest expansion of government in the history of Nigeria. And people play joke with it.
I'm hoping you could tell me your regrets.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm hoping I was hoping your regrets
that's what I'm saying. No. My regret is that politics has fused with governance so much that there is a delusion. You can no longer see the truth. You cannot see it.
No, so you're telling me that
my regret,
with regard to your people, you did so right by your people that you don't wish you did better?
No, there's nothing I wish. I wish I had more funds. If I was to come back as governor again, I would not change my program and policy of putting my people first above any project. That salary and pension comes first on my list, and my second project is to be bigger than I can carry, so that I can free them from poverty on the long run.
Your Excellency, I'd like to thank you for your time. I wish you well in whatever else you find to do after office, and hope the next administration continues with your projects, as it will be better for the people. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, that's Political Paradigm. Thank you very much for your time. I've been speaking with the Executive Governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade. Catch this episode and others on YouTube. Simply search Political Paradigm or go to channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.